Good morning. This is Pam with Follow Your Brush. And there it is. Look at that. It's a blank sheet of paper. The question that I'm talking about today is, now what? What to do now? I am doing this for one of my faithful members in Follow Your Brush who has expressed just kind of a frustration with what she's doing and has just kind of come to a stop in the road. There's a stop sign that's keeping her from going forward. And so, we all do that. We look at this blank sheet of paper and it's like, now what? What do I do? I'm just kind of run out of ideas. And so I often just play. That is just one of my famous words around here at my house when I'm painting is I'm just playing, especially if I don't like the results. It's like, oh, I'm just playing. So let's just start to play. And even though I don't have anything definite in mind, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like a warm-up, although I don't exercise, so I can't tell you what warm-ups are like. Exercise and I have never been friends. But anyway, let's warm up in painting. I'm not going to think. I'm just going to put some wet marks on my page and just kind of just let my brush just kind of go wherever. Doesn't matter. So there you go. Hopefully you can see the dampness on the page. I don't know if you can or not. Maybe if I put it up. I don't know. But I did. So there's just some wet marks. Just some wet marks. This is actually one of my favorite ways to play and paint, is to just go ahead and wet the page. And then I'm going to come back in with some color. And it doesn't really matter what color. I'm just going to play. These are my Michael Harding paints. This one I know is a color called, I believe it's Belladonna. It's just a purple. I like purples. And what I'm going to do is just come into these wet places where I've already placed my water and just see what the color wants to do. Just let it play as I play. And it's going to run. It only goes, where the water has gone. I have been trying to do some florals lately. So I think I kind of have that in my brain already as I'm doing these marks. But it doesn't really matter what's in my brain. Sometimes there's nothing there. But what matters is I'm just going to play, and I'm just going to put this on. I can now come back. I can splatter some water. Just see what it does. That's interesting, watching that run down. I always tell you, the paint's only going to go where the water flows, so we can watch that flow a little bit. That's pretty. Another thing I can do to play, I'm going to add some more over here. This brush is my large brush from Tracy Levinson. Holds tons of water, so it's great for wet on wet. And I really enjoy it for that. Let's do some splatter a little bit. So some of this is going to come on the areas that does not have water yet. Go different directions. See what that does. It's kind of cool. One of my favorite activities with my granddaughter several years ago was we just splattered our paint, let it dry, and then later came back to outline perhaps objects or something that we saw. Okay, so there we go, wet on wet, let it run. Now we've got some splatter, and as usual I have splatter elsewhere. I'm doing this at my new desk, so I don't want to get splatter too many places. I can also let that run if I want to, the splatter. The thing about playing is you can do whatever you want, so we don't really have to have an anticipated end. It doesn't really matter. Just do whatever you want to do. Another thing I like to do, and since we're playing, we'll do that here too. And that is when we eat out or we have DoorDash, they bring us little salt packets. And I save these for my painting instead of using my big salt shaker sometimes. And you can add, when it's at this point of your painting, when it's just, see that sheen on there? It's not dry, but it's still a little bit wet. You can add some salt to an area, and I'm just gonna come in here lightly. I kind of like the way this is coming up this direction, maybe in the middle of this. And let's add some salt to that. And you'll see that it's the right time because you can see the little salt particles absorbing the ink. You see that? See how they're darker? And that means they're absorbing the ink. And then as it dries later, you can take that off. Now let's pretend, I'm still thinking flowers. Let's pretend that maybe this is a little flower and we want some texture in the petals. Here's another thing I like to do, and that is to take my handy dandy, in this case saran wrap, it can be any type of cling wrap. And also, while this is still wet, you can kind of tear this into pieces. And because I'm thinking flowers, I'm thinking that maybe I might want to put some texture in these little areas that are coming down. So what I'm going to do is kind of crunch up my cling wrap and press it on to my painting. And now this will dry as we allow it to. Put another one. And then as it dries, it's going to create little crinkles and wrinkles in the paint. This is a shorter piece. Let me cut it this direction. It's going to do some crinkles and wrinkles in my paint as it dries. And so when it's totally dry, I can take this off and it'll give me some texture to my flower. So what started out as a blank page and me just playing can kind of end up as a little fun something. It doesn't really have to be anything. Be whatever you want it to be. Just come in with no expectations, just playtime. And let's do one up here. Oops. So it wants to kind of go that direction. And often I will play with my painting as well and just see what it wants to do, because watercolor has a way of just doing whatever it wants to do. And sometimes that's part of our frustration. We're trying to control it. That's too dry to put one on there. I think this is still wet enough. Yeah, that's still wet enough. You can only do it when it still has that little bit of a sheeny look. And you can get this on there and get some texture. So a little bit more down here. Oh, it doesn't want to stay. Okay. Come on. Get down there. And I think this is going to be kind of cool. Now, actually, this is probably too dry up here, but you know what? I want to put some saran wrap on it. So I'm going to come back in here and add some more paint and some more moisture so I can put my cling wrap on there and make a petal. So this is just painting. This is just some of the ways that I play. Years ago when I taught kindergarten, we did our learning in forms of games. We played vowel games, we played number games, and I told the parents that if the kids came home and told them that they didn't do any work that day, it's because we do learning games and we learn through playing. And that's what a lot of this is as well. So don't be afraid to play. And my friend knows who I'm talking to. Just kind of come in and do what you want to do. Experiment with different things. And I'm going to set this aside to dry, and hopefully my cat will leave it alone. You can see how the salt is absorbing and it's spreading out, giving that almost a sunburst texture. You see that? So I'm going to let this dry a minute. Another thing that I have been doing, I'm going to set this up here in my desk. Another thing that I have been doing is playing with stencils. And what I've done is come into a painting that I've already did previously, and then coming back with some little stencils. And this also requires it to be dry. And then putting the stencil on top and lifting out some spots. And we'll just do an example right here. And this I do with, believe it or not, I didn't bring it over here. You need a harder brush. You don't need you need something that's harder. I normally do it with a toothbrush. I don't have one here. Let me see what I have.
Where is it? I can bring it to you.
It's right over there in one of those cubbies. No, over here.
Those cubbies?
I think the second one, maybe we're at the bottom one. My daughter's helping me find
I see it.
my possessions. Yesterday I just had a fit because I had lost.
I'm over here, Mom.
I had lost something. Okay, there she is. Okay, so I'm going to put this down on a dry painting. This is a painting that I don't really care what happens to it. You know, and in fact, some of this I've been playing with. I just pick up old paintings that I thought maybe were goners. Not good for anything. But I wet my brush a little bit, kind of just tap it off. Put this stencil over top, and then just gently brush an area on that dry painting. And take it off, and then I blot it. And you see those cool marks it made? This is kind of fun. I enjoy this, and my only thing with this is that I get a little bit carried away, or a lot carried away, and then my painting is just covered with nothing but too many stencil marks. But I do it on old paintings, so it doesn't really matter. And I kind of like this starburst looking one. In fact, let's go ahead and go over what I've already done and just do the center of this. With the stencil. It's a cool pattern, and I just think it's fun. Let me blot, because I got too much water there. So that's kind of fun too. Had another color on my stencil, so that kind of came out on the... So that's another way I play. I play with my stencils. But let's look at this again. This is a 300-pound piece of paper. This is one of my Cheap Joe's Kilimanjaro sketchbooks. But I ordered one that comes in 300-pound. And so this is also fun. This we're going to kind of come in. This one, actually with this paper, you can wet the whole page. Let me get a bigger, I'm going to use this this brush. This is I'm not sure how many inches. All my markings have, let's say about an inch maybe. You can come in with your 300-pound paper and just wet the whole thing. I know I made some little smudgies there with my other painting, but that's okay. The 300-pound paper is going to just absolutely soak in the water. And that's really fun. Do you hear my squeaky chair?
We're gonna have to oil that.
Sorry, my daughter's laughing at me because my chair's squeaking. I'm just moving, that's all. Anyway, side note, sidebar there. You can wet the 300-pound paper and just soak it and let it sit a minute, which I am going to do. Then when you come back in with some paint, and again, we're still playing, okay? We have no preconceived ideas or we're just playing. Nothing that I'm intentionally trying to do. Just play and see what happens, because that's how I learn. I just learn by experimenting. So this time I'm going to take my little squirrel. It's a little squirrel dagger. I call him Slappy, because when he's wet, you just never know what he's going to do. So I'm going to take Slappy on this wet paper, and I'm going to come in here and we're just going to kind of slap down some marks and let it just play. Now see, already I can see. Now one thing I do when I'm playing like this, I begin to see things in my painting, and to me these little marks really look like some pretty foliage. So I'm gonna just let the paint do that. Let's just let the painting and the watercolor play and do some foliage. Let me kind of bring it up here. And it doesn't matter, you know, there's no right or wrong. We're just playing. So if you don't like it, you know, it's just a piece of paper. Then since I've used, this is my sap green, that's pretty. I want to kind of have something that's going to go with that. It's already green, so I don't necessarily want a red would make it kind kind of an orangey color. I don't really want to do that. I have a pretty turquoise here. Let's go into some turquoise. So I'm going to let this kind of soak in that turquoise and come into some of these spots where the foliage is not. That's a pretty color, isn't it? So this time I'm just going to kind of come in between where my green went. And you know, by not thinking about it, not thinking this has to be a flower, I think I'm actually making a prettier painting when I stop thinking. When I overthink it, I almost always don't do well. Isn't that pretty? I like that. Get some more turquoise in here. I like what that's doing. I really do like that. Just put a couple little dots up here. Now this is totally wet on wet, so it's gonna run with this 300-pound paper. And me personally, I really like it when it does that. I like to watch it go. And I think we're getting some nice results with that. It's not going to run and flow like I did on the other one as much, because I did just the wet in spots. This I wet the entire paper. I do want another color though, and you see how this is kind of drying here a little darker. That's because I have too much pigment on that, and so the binder and the pigment will start to show. I want to put another color. Let's kind of go kind of wild here, and I've got the turquoise. Let's stay in that blue family though, and let me just put a couple little dots of some blues in here. Again, there's no rhyme, no reason. Just playing and just see what happens. So when you look at that blank page and you think, what am I going to do? It's a blank page here. Just stop thinking and just let the paint play with you, or you play with the paint. And the wonderful thing about watercolor, in my opinion, is that it just kind of wants to play by itself. I don't have any other blue marks down here. Let's do some. Look how that's spreading. Look how pretty that is. It's just almost little like fern-like petals, or just flowers with little petals. Isn't that pretty? Let's do a couple up in here. So as I go, I just kind of let the paper kind of tell me what it wants to do, and just watch it and let it go. And it's just so much fun. So playing, facing that blank sheet of paper does not have to be intimidating. Look how pretty that is. And of course it's going to dry a little lighter, but don't you love the different marks it's making? Look at those little feathery marks in the water. To me, that is just really fun. I love doing wet on wet. These are drying already, so they're a little lighter than down here, but that's okay. It's not gonna run because this is 300-pound paper, because it absorbed the water already. So let me set this aside and let's go back to this one that we were drying and see how it's doing. Put that one away. This is my little stencil play. And here is my little flower. I put the salt, and look how that has given it a blooming effect in the center of this flower. This isn't quite dry, but I'm going to try to take these off anyway and just carefully and see if we can get some marks. We have a little bit of marks on there. If it's totally dry, you're going to get some really pretty textures. Not quite dry enough, but yeah, we're going to go for it. We do have some pretty textures in there regardless. And look how pretty that's coming out. And some of this salt is dry. When it gets clear, it's finally dried out. And you're really not supposed to do this when it's wet, but I'm going to just gently try to flake some of that off. And then that's okay. My fingers can make some marks in the paint as well. Another one of your tools God gave you is your fingers. Finger paint. And I think that came out pretty. So don't be afraid to play. Play with your salt. Play with some splatter. Some of the splatter isn't even dry yet over here. Try wet on wet. Try different size papers, different weights. You can try wet on dry. Both of these I kind of played with. I like this one. I did the wet on wet. And I'm just going to leave it now and just let that be. That's my playtime. And I like it. And then this is my stencil playtime. And so that's another thing you can do. I just got my stencils on Amazon. Let's take the tape off of this and see how this first one looks. Now that we have let it dry a little bit, and I'll take off the tape. And I think I have a pretty abstract flower. I'm liking that. What do you think? I think it looks pretty. So go ahead and have some fun today. Look at that blank piece of paper in the eye and just say, I'm going to create something today that has never existed. Angela Fair said that years ago, and that really touched my heart. I was like, yes, I can do this. When I create today on that blank piece of paper, I am creating something that never has existed before. And if people like it, awesome. If they don't, that's fine too. It's my creation for the day. So for those of you that are stuck and don't know what to do, it doesn't matter. Just go create something and make your mark on your creation for today. Thanks for watching. This is Pam. Follow your brush. Like and subscribe if you're still with me, and enjoy these videos. See you next time. Bye.